Thank you, everyone. Thank you for having me here today. Thank you for coming out in the rain. It was like the Atlantic out there, so I'm excited we made it. Some of us made it just in time, so we haven't really gotten drenched. So I'm Maurice Neblett. I'm running to serve as Richmond's next mayor in the city of Richmond. I'm 35 years old. I'm energetic. I'm ready for the changes that we need for our city. I bring new ideas to old problems. We have candidates that I'm running against that have had opportunity to resolve issues in our community and that hadn't been done. So I'm the only candidate that looks to make sure that we make effective change day one, once elected with your vote. I graduated from Virginia Union University. I'm the first generation graduate there. I'm also a business owner, entrepreneur. So some of the businesses I do have is in security firm, roadside assistance. So I do understand the importance of road and road safety. Also, we grassroots in healthcare and then also in freight. But I more so do consulting work. The main thing I do on a daily basis is community work. So I'm a community organizer, community visionary, and also I am a resource manager. So I don't work population specific, when it comes to issues in our community. If there's a call, I have the answer. I want to make sure we come with resolution. A lot of times we have issues in our community that doesn't take rocket science, but it takes just a little support. It just takes another ear or hands of helping process, right? So with that, I come with a fresh perspective. I come with a perspective of community, with understanding the challenges that we face. I lived all over the city of Richmond. I lived north, east, south, and west. So when it comes to the issues here, like in the West End, I know those issues, and they're not less important than any other issues that we have in the city. We just have to address them. We have to prioritize, and we just really have to get it done. We have to have more involvement, which we have the help. Individuals are in the mud, like your organization, we are in the mud. So we just need to have a seat at the table. And that's one thing I'll make sure that we have is a seat at the table with this local governance coming up with this administration for 2025 fiscal. So when we look at the issues in our community, like the safety roadway issues, for one, we need to make sure we have all the roads that's needed. We need to make sure we don't just fill it with potholes. I don't want to be the pothole mayor. I want to be the mayor that makes sure we pave the roads where they're needed. I want to make sure that we have the speed bumps in the neighborhoods that's highly populated with our children. I want to make sure that we also have the traffic circle infrastructure in place where we have an influx of traffic. And I know coming down Idlewood, a lot of people fly through that stop sign because they think they just tunnel vision and they're looking to get on the highway. So that's an issue there. But I want to make sure we have innovative techniques. We need to have curbside lighting and reflectors. We need to make sure that our city is well lit. Some parts of our city, you turn and you're not sure if you're going to roll over the median or if you're going to drive into the curb because you can't differentiate between the parking lot entrance and the curbs because it's just dark. Another thing is also the grass. We have some areas in Richmond, and since we spoke on South Side, Hall Street and Warwick, that traffic circle. I mean, you would think we in Australia or Africa somewhere, the way the grass is so high. I mean, you can't even see some of the signs in some areas. So that's not good safety roadway practices. So I want to make sure we make a lot of improvements. We make sure the city is beautiful along the way with that, but making sure we have visibility. Right, visibility with lighting, visibility with not having any obstructions, but then also making sure that we have potholeless roads. I've had a fair share in college. I went through axles and ball joints, and even wheels and rims because I rode over areas where it's just bad. Right, this city can do better with potholes. Okay. All right, so another thing is with our administration, what I look to make sure we have in place is opportunity for our citizens to have a vote. I believe that we do need to place issues on the ballot or concerns on the ballot, no question. It's nothing for us to staff for that. We actually have them staffed throughout the year just to make sure that's clear at our registrars and the other localities like the City Hall, where we utilize that as a polling station along with the registrars. I believe we can have a collective community formation. That's key. A lot of individuals, they bring up like police reform, right? I just don't believe we can have that without having a community formed. We need to make sure that we have a seat and make sure we have a voice and make sure we have involvement when it comes to our community and our community policing. So I have a background in criminology and criminal justice. So I bring a unique dynamic, with me in coming into this election. For one, our nation needs to be more secure, let alone our city. So when we're looking at security, we're looking at our cyber world, right? We're looking at our safety and defense responses when it comes to our militia. I know a lot of times we don't think about it. We may have forgotten, but we do have Virginia or Richmond defense organizations. But situations like the pandemic, when we had the riots, and those, I'm trying to find the best way to say it, but we had situations where some individuals were acting unruly, and they weren't, advocating for the issue. They were utilizing that as a time for destruction. That's a wake-up call, for me, to make sure that we have a safe neighborhood and safe streets, because, we think about, if any of you seen the movie, it's at the tip of my brain, the movie when they went and they sanctioned killing, right? And I'm sorry to use this, purge. It reminds me of opportunity for a purge, right? We need to make sure we have secure, tactics in place to just dissolve and de-escalate, and almost instantaneous, and not just shooting tear gas at the crowd, not anything like that. We have to be proactive, and being proactive is really, honing in on community engagement. With me living all over the city of Richmond, I believe I have contacts in communities where other candidates, they do not. I go in certain neighborhoods, even my team, they say, hold on, we're not going with you, because I understand, the dynamic of that community, it may be, seen as a safety risk because of some behaviors of individuals there. But I go in those communities because that's where we need to be facing it head on. I wanted to stare it in the face, because we can't allow at any point throughout in our society for any disruptive and really criminalization in our society, because it runs from one neighborhood to the next. And a lot of times we believe that we may be in a safe zone, right? But I see where they spews over from one neighborhood to the other. So when we go attacking this type of dynamic is facing that small population directly, we have to target those individuals to let them know, hey, I know what's going on. I know what you're doing. We know, we have information to believe that you have firearms, and you may be utilizing that, in a manner that is not conducive for the growth of our citizens, right? And, and provided there's an intervention moment, right? To say, how can we help you, right? I'm all about self-sustainability. That's another way that's going to protect us, right? As far as the security standpoint. If we're self-sustainable, no matter what happens in any other state, we should be able to outlast, as much as possible through a certain period of time. I have a projection, but that's going to determine on our businesses the way if they thrive, right? That's going to determine the development that we have in our community, and limiting the outside source for development. We need to keep the financials within the city longer, right? That's what's going to make Richmond the Dubai of Virginia. I want to make sure that we are the strongest economically on the East Coast. We can do it. We have a lot of infrastructure that we can build upon. The thing is, though, we have a lot of buildings and businesses on Hall Street, right? We need to attract more businesses and on the Hall Street area, and then also on Broad Street, right? We need to make it more an incentive for those local businesses, and limit the incentives to the big developers. I know we incentivize them 7-year tax break, The issue is that we already have a high number of exemptions, and maybe from 40 to $100 million exemption loss. I call it a loss because we're not gaining any revenue on it. That's something that we need to limit. But when it comes to our local businesses, we need to encourage them. We need to be able to give more support. Provide business resource centers attached with City Hall. But speaking on City Hall, I want to make sure that we clean up the cesspool in City Hall. A lot of times individuals, they talk about revenue. Even the politicians that are running against, they speak on revenue, but as a business owner, profits aren't profits if we're taking losses, right? So when we're looking at revenue, it's not true revenue, because if money is being spent or taken, right, or the misuse of funds are happening, we're the ones taking the loss, overall. So I want to ensure that we have a forensic audit, in our City Hall, so that we can make sure that we don't have these same issues again, because it's unfortunate. As you mentioned, even with the trails, there's a number attached to it, and we're in the millions, right? When we need infrastructure changes or anything in our community, we always hear we don't have the money. That's a fragment, though. That's a fragment, because next thing you know, we have funds for something else, right? We can't even get funding for a curb. Like I know as a family, their elderly grandmother fell over because she's on a wheelchair, and there wasn't a handicap ramp there, right? And the city told them either they have to pay to have it installed, but they don't have the money right now. Something that's as small as a 4 foot in width and 2 foot in height, or in the same stance, you can't even accommodate for that. That just shows the issues that can arise when it comes to the needs for our community. That's just a small prerequisite of issues, and that's just a reflection of where we are. We really have our issues, and our issues right now is in transparency. Why do we not have the money? That's one of the main things I want to make sure we provide the community, is the transparent aspect, and also being accountable. Well, we don't have the money. Well, where did the money go? You right? Because we keep continuing to have the issues in our community and deaths. Right? We had just had recently a stabbing that was at the bus stop. Right? We also had the issue with the FedEx truck hitting a woman. Right? So these are safety issues that could be prevented with some funding, right? With some funding, with more lighting, more curbside reflectors, and also with the stabbings, right? We need some cameras in areas, and I know we have to always look at safety versus liberty, right? And we don't really want to infringe on any freedoms, right, or rights, but no one should be at a public station and they're being victimized, let alone being victimized outside of City Hall. Like not too long ago, it was a shooting right outside of City Hall. That shows how much our city is out of control, and we've lost that grip. So I want to make sure we have that grip back. I have a close connection with the community, so I'm willing to go out on the forefront of it, right? I want to make sure we have communication and education on what it means for a mayor to stand on business. And when I say standing on business is being responsible for the safety, security, being responsible for the resources that we need in our community and our schools. And I think that, with a vote, your vote for Neblett is a vote towards the future. I believe your vote for Neblett is a vote for a new way forward. And I believe your vote for Neblett is a vote for your voice. It's so many smart and talented individuals out in our community. I know you mentioned, like, we have some developers, they work with the numbers, they are great, but we have some here. And I believe you are an emulate of one of those individuals that can help, shine a light and help pave the way, Well, you're not a developer. No. You're not a developer, but with having the knowledge, right? So knowing that when you have a negation and something that antagonizes against what you're looking to do, you work it the opposite way, right? We know, without tallying the numbers, without saying like, hey, We need 10 more rooftops, you know, in the Southside area to have a grocery store. That's not anything that should make the determination. People are hungry. We know we need it. We just need to make it happen. Elwood Thompson is a great example. I love Elwood Thompson. If you haven't been, please visit. That's a great size store. I mean, we at least need something like that on that side of town and minimize and reduce, well, really cease the establishment of more vape shops. I'm trying to find the best way of saying it because I'm a business owner and I understand, but we have enough of those, okay? In place of where those vape shops are, we could have had small versions of grocery stores or convenience stores that have healthy foods and healthy supermarket, right? So it changed the dynamic at this time. The paradigm has to come back to the reality. We know what we want, we know what we need, and let's talk about it. Let's build it together. I mean, that's the simple form for me. It's just complex issues with simple solutions. I believe that that's going to be the effective way for our next administration. But I love to answer any questions. And then please excuse me, I went from one meeting to the next. I mean, I don't even know how many meetings, like 4 meetings today. So I may have skipped some of what I wanted to cover. But I do want to answer any questions or concerns that you do have in regards to our city and our administration coming up for this election. Yes, sir.
So what's your plans to do with the shortage of new housing being built in the city? Do you have any steps you want to take to address that?
So first, you know, what we have, like even in Southside, we have a lot of vacant homes, right? What I want to say is that we need to invest in the properties and estates here. You know, pawning it off to developers, I don't think that's a great choice because we need to develop affordable home ownership, right? With the hike of the unaffordable housing market, we need to be able to control the dynamic and how that fits for Richmond. You know, at this stage, we have a lot of apartments that are built around the city, and there are more, right? Average rent for a 2-bedroom is $1,550. You have some of the new units that are being built for a 1-bedroom is around $1,600. So taking what we have, right, and making sure that we do the right thing with that first before ignoring it and building new homes. That's the approach that I want to take. But of course, I'm a man of referendum. So that's something that I'll place on the table for us to make a decision. Are we want to revitalize these homes here so we can develop and have affordable home ownership? Or will we build more affordable housing, which is a bit unaffordable? But we need to look at the lower income and minority groups that need housing that will fit within the range of no more than 35% of your income. That's an approach that I look at for anyone, no matter where you are. I don't believe you should have to pay more than 35% of your income. I mean, even at 80,000, you know, feeling at 80,000, making more than 80,000 a year. I mean, I feel it. You know, it is like a draining pot right now. The way our economy is not equating the wage, right? The pay is not it's just not fitting. The meals tax, I'll be able to touch on that. But grocery store and foods are high. You know, we have gas and hiked back up, you know, to $3.40, some at 60 cents. You know, we have also the aspect of entertainment. I don't know how just the pricing is just changed. It's hard to really have a good time. And we really need that. After having a hard day's work throughout the week, we need to have a reset. You know, I think that dynamic for housing, we just have to take an inside out approach and not just pacify it by just saying affordable housing. That term to me is a deflection. That term to me is deceitful. And I believe we have to draw back and redefine it.
Well, our group's big on supply increases, big time.
Yes.
And if you had a chance to read the book that Chuck wrote, who started Strong Towns, it might change your mind a little bit, because what will help most for most people is we need more housing. Like trying to determine all this stuff, like the gentleman was just speaking about the Fall Line Trail. It's like a 15-year project. So Christian's son's going to be going off to college. Son? Yep, son. 50-50 chance. Son's going to go off to college. You know, if we try to do a project of that length, like that's an unacceptable length of time. And so I think that you could distinguish yourself if you consider some of these supply-oriented alternatives, because they're way faster to implement than going through 8 years worth of planning to then build one building that ends up not working out financially. Like, especially with what Strong Towns talks about with a lot of infill. So instead of these big buildings, it's more about, they call it accessory dwelling units, but just additional units on already zoned single family properties. We can get a lot of groundswell supply very quickly. And that's mostly of the problems of the blockers that mostly relate to regulation and zoning and not requiring more government expenditure. And that could really help you achieve your goals without having to, try to knock down everybody at City Hall to raise money to get it done. Like, you could definitely distinguish yourself, especially on a group like us, who's pretty motivated around increasing the supply of housing, which inherently will push the prices down. Like,
Right.
If you're advocating within a group like us and trying to figure out what's going to speak to people like us, it's that language.
Right.
Because we don't have time to wait. Christian's son's going off to college used to be like, oh man, I can spend 35%. Like that's way too much. It's now 20 because Richmond's developing like Austin is or like Nashville is, and that's been all driven by reforms on their ease of constructing housing, making it easier for people to develop versus top down. Let's pick a place and figure out how to get everybody involved. So let people develop what they want to make. So could be helpful for you.
Right. Well, even though you make that statement, I'm definitely with progress. I'm for that. I'm for a change. But it does take. See, it's always been from a bottom up approach, and that hasn't been effective for Richmond. It's from top down. That's where it comes with accountability. That what comes us having to make sure to say, hey, we looking at the plans, but we know these are the revenue challenges we're facing. Now, no one wants to admit that where the revenue challenges are, and they also don't want to admit where the interest of the developer and the corporate is outweighing the people's voice. So when it comes to the dynamic of housing, I first want to make sure that we utilize what we have, because when I say we develop affordable home owners, we essentially are developing taxpayers, right? We need to make sure that we pull up these other communities that we're breaking down. We're breaking down Hillside, Creighton Court. We're breaking down Gilpin Court. There's an $11 million project for Gilpin Court. But a lot of issues what we're having now is that they're receiving vouchers. When we have a family, and as a community organizer, I'm battling with, there's a family with a voucher for $2,000. So the city is paying, curving that expense for the housing, but there's no housing that they're being accepted to, right? So instead of us always, pushing out for a voucher that we're not really housing, people are becoming displaced, right? So we need 5,000 units to cover the displaced individuals, and I really feel like 5,000 is an understatement. I don't think that's a hard 5,000, but we need at least 5,000 units, which we can build high on to really, resolve the homelessness in Richmond before we turn into Skid Row. We're so close to it, and the crime level is going to go high. So I look at it as in layers. As far as utilizing what we have, get individuals that are ready for homes. I graduated college. When they changed in 2011, the legislature said you have to utilize your debt to income ratio with your student loans. That puts us at a halt as individuals graduating from college. We can't just go and purchase a home, even though we may be working professionals. But if we're not making over, maybe $80,000 to $100,000, we wouldn't be able to offset that to obtain a home. So we have individuals that graduate from VCU, University of Richmond, and we want to hold on to the individuals in the city of Richmond, right? So that's why I look at, let's see how we can hold on to what we have, those vacant homes, Let us invest. Let the city, let the people invest into that so that we can develop home ownership. But then also, we're not ignoring the fact we need to build apartments. We need to, but at what expense will it be if more individuals will become homeless and we have more vagrants on the street? You know, that's going to put a stain on business. You know, people wouldn't want to cross the street. You know, I'm just looking at ahead on the forefront. But as I mentioned, it still is going to be the people's decision. You know, my job isn't to make that decision for you, even though it seemed to have been that way for 4, 8, or 12 years. Now it's for us to make that decision. It's for the people to vote on what priority that you want to set. I mean, and the only thing I have to do is make sure I support that and I advocate and make sure the policies are proper, so we can make sure the regulations are in place. You know, so that's my position. I don't come in here with the ego, you know, into this politics. I don't come in here with having to make a decision for the people. I have ideas. I've lived it. I've seen it. I'm 35. I've lived in Richmond most of my life, you know, and even the offset of me being in foster care, you know, seeing a dynamic where we need support in social services for the youth and for the elderly. You know, it's so many dynamics we need to focus on, where I don't believe that the decision from Maurice Neblett is going to, you know, stop us from being able to progress as a city, and especially when it comes to establishing a state, you know, for our residents. So that's something that we want to make a decision on the box.
Okay.
Yes, sir. But if you have a question, please ask me specifically.
Yeah,
Yes.
like in terms of like transportation, is there like some is there like specific projects you want to like prioritize in, or or maybe like transportation modality, or just projects you want to prioritize in for the city?
Well, for one, I'm not sure if any of you have traveled to like DC, the DC area. We supposed to have a bus transfer station. That is not a bus transfer station. That's a parking lot where buses just go. We need to put buses back on Broad Street or at the 501 North 9th Street. That could be a great area for a bus transfer station where we can have television, where we can have restrooms, where we can have some businesses in those places. Like that's one key thing I wanted to make sure that we affect when it comes to us having a hub for our residents that's utilizing the public transit. So.
Any other questions for anyone else?
You have more questions? If you want to ask more questions, go for it.
It's okay. Take your time. Take your time. I can speak on a few things that I may have not covered. So one of the other issues that I want to make sure we do acknowledge, our traffic lights aren't synced. All right, we need to sync our traffic lights. All right, we need to reevaluate that. Also, we need to add more bike lanes. We need to add more bike lanes, and also I plan to increase the funding for those issues. Let's see. You know, many of the concerns, you know, have been at the beck and call of the citizens for a very long time, but it seemed that they have been silenced, and you know, the elected officials have ignored, you know, those very people who elected them. You know, my thing about transparency is to make sure we put it all on the table, because we have to control it at the poll. It's not only, I know a lot of times people ask questions and concerns. I hear people all the time say, well, no, that's not city, that's a state. Or it's not state, that's federal. As an elected official, you know, I believe that I have to advocate no matter what level it's on. I have to take that concern and advocate it and make sure that it goes to the right door and we can address it. Wherever the door is open, you know, let's let it be known. But wherever the door is closed, it should be known as well. So that we'll be able to, you know, push through the issues and not just continue to have the same issues and have to wait 50 years for a resolution. Yes, sir.
Meals tax.
Oh, so, all right, so the meals tax. All right, so as a community organizer, a business came to me because they were threatened that they faced jail time and that they had to pay tens of thousands of dollars if they didn't pay. So this company came to me asking for help, right? So I went, I looked at the evidence, I pulled evidence and made sure I explained it to them. Ultimately, the issue fell on the city, all right? The issue fell on the city with accountability. They told the company that they were dining out only so they didn't have to pay meals tax, right? That's a problem. We have to have our city hall, and that's why I mentioned, making sure our city hall is cleaned up. We have to ensure that our city hall is equipped and knowledgeable about the services that we're providing. But the thing about meals tax, we've gotten it this year, but the whole point of the meals tax was to provide funding to our schools. It hadn't happened. This year it did. This is an election year though. So that $9 to $10 million, is my job with that forensic audit to see where that money has been allocated, because that takes away from our children, that takes away from you being the taxpayers. And meals tax, we need to reevaluate it, because it hadn't been utilized the way it should. And if we truly want to pay meals tax, we need to see where that money is going, and we need to make a decision on, the allotment of those funds as well.
I got it about it. So I'm not sure, where your stance is regarding Richmond 300 and kind of the revamping of the zoning code, the modernizing it from its last creation back in the mid 70s. I'm not sure how you feel about the reimplementation of the zoning code.
So, what I say is everything needs to be reevaluated. It hadn't been done since the 60s. And we have some areas for zoning for towing, right? We have some zoning that hadn't been changed, but there's not a fair practice when it comes to zoning for some businesses. Some businesses have been grandfathered in, and I think that we need to reevaluate it for sure, because we need to have an equitable society. So I feel that we do need to reevaluate for zoning and cut the red tape with permitting, and also make sure we support our businesses when it comes to procurement. That all ties in, because we need to give procurement opportunities to our local government.
Fred was going to talk after.
He's welcome to.
That was great.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah,